Again, good morning to everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate you coming down to witness your government in action. We're going to get started now. We have established our quorum. So to give our invocation this morning, the chair recognizes Archbishop Mary Floyd Palmer of the Philadelphia Council of Clergymen Incorporated. She is here today as the guest of Councilman Johnson. I would ask all guests, visitors, and members to please rise.
Good morning, President, Council,
Morning.
President, and Council members, guests. Certainly, I would love to lead this invocation as well as our memory of one who has transitioned, T. Milton Street, a longtime family friend. Our gracious Heavenly Father, it is because of your mercies that we are not consumed. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. We bow in humble submission to you today to thank you for allowing us to see this day, the first day of December of this year, 2022. We are grateful, God, that you have kept us through seen and unseen dangers for us to congregate together yet one more time. We are grateful for the august body of those elected officials that have chosen the opportunity to serve our people, our citizens, the best and the least fortunate. We are grateful, God, that they are able to stand and will continue to serve with fidelity and integrity. We bless the new council members that have joined this body, and we pray strength for their journey, as well as those that have continued to do so with the joy and the enlightenment of helping others. We can't help but say thank you just one more time for your protection, for your grace, for your love, for your mercy, and most of all, God, we pray for your peace in our homes, our peace in this body, and peace, God, in the streets. Now cover and keep us, guide every conversation, help those who we trust to make good decisions, not just for the part, God, but for the whole. And at the end of the matter, we will say it is well with our souls, and we will give you the honor. We will sure enough give you the glory, and we can't help but give you the praise and consider it to be done in the name that I know to be above every name. Jesus the Christ is my prayer. Amen, amen, and amen.
Amen.
God bless you.
Thank you, Archbishop, so much. We really appreciate your spiritual guidance this morning. Council will be at ease. Thank you again, Archbishop. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thank you. Before we start our agenda today, the chair recognizes Councilman Thomas. I'd like to make a brief statement.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. I just wanted to take a moment to recognize a special guest that's in the back. In June of this year, we recognized this young man as the youngest author in the city of Philadelphia. He considers himself a kidpreneur, right? He has a book that I'm blessed enough to have with me that's called I Can Read So I Can Lead. He's also a friend of Councilmember Johnson as well, so he probably has some South Philadelphia relationships. Can we all give a round of applause to Mr. Asil Greer? Asil, can you raise your hand real quick? Asil was our champion of the week in June, and because of scheduling, we couldn't get him into City Council until today, so we want to welcome Asil, his family, and hope that his work inspires the next young person to follow their dream and to use their talent for the greater good of the city of Philadelphia. Thank you, Council President. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Councilman, and thank you for being here today. We appreciate it. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Kathy Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Council President. I wanted to also recognize some very important special guests that we have with us today. They are the students of the Philadelphia High School for Girls, my alma mater in the district of our colleague, Councilmember Bass. I wanted to recognize the young ladies who gave a compelling public safety presentation when I visited with Girls High a few months ago. They are the Girls High students advocating for Everyone initiative. They are Anne, Patricia, Jaylyn, Aya, Monday, Alexandria, Corinne, Sage, Sane, Yassine, Mamona, Falashade, Meg Graham, their community partner coordinator, and Principal Lisa Misi. Welcome the students of the Philadelphia High School for Girls to Philadelphia City Council.
Awesome.
And I wanted to note, Council President, that it's important for them to be here today because, like them, I started here when I was 15 years old with Councilmember Blondell Reynolds Brown, who was the class of 214 at Girls High, and also Archbishop Mary Floyd Palmer, who is here with us today. She is also a graduate of the Philadelphia High School for Girls. And lastly, I wanted to recognize guests that you all know are very important to me and to the Philadelphia community and across the world. They are the members of the Blue and White family, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated and Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. You will hear from them later during public comment, but I wanted to recognize the members of Beta Delta Zeta chapter, their president, Dana Moore, who is here with us. Also, the members from Phi Beta Sigma Nu Sigma chapter, of which my husband, David Richardson, is now the president. They are here with Rashawn Howard, Jay Broadnax, and Howard Sid Lucas. And also, again, wanted to recognize Archbishop Mary Floyd Palmer, who is a member of Zeta, and our very own Sydney Sherrills, who works with Councilmember Gaudier, and she's also a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. I'd like to take a moment to recognize our newest members of our City Council family, Councilwoman Lozado, Councilwoman Vaughn, Councilman Harity, Councilman Harity got a head start last night. He was at a community meeting with me last night over in Fishtown. Yeah, it was pretty lively. And Councilman Phillips. All right. Thank you all. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate your addition. We know that you're going to be an awesome council members, and we look forward to continuing to serve as the people of the city of Philadelphia. Okay, thank you. Our next order of business is the approval of the journal of the meeting of Thursday, November 17, 2022, and the chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the journal of the meeting of Thursday, November 17th, 2022 be approved.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly second that the journal of the meeting of Thursday, November 17, 2022 stand approved. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. Journal is approved. And our next order of business is request for leave of absence. And the chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Mr. President, on behalf of members of council, there are no requests for leaves of absence today.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks to the gentleman. And the chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass for motion concerning certain legislative matters that may arise during the course of today's session of council and that were not listed on the calendar prior to today's session.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that any of the following matters, if considered today, may be added to the agenda for this session of council and, as required by law, subsequently published on an amended agenda after the consideration of those matters. Resolutions authorizing hearings, amendments to bills on first reading, the reconsideration of a bill vetoed by or recalled from the mayor, amendments to bills recalled from the mayor, resolutions taking substantive action to be voted on in this session, a motion to withdraw a bill or resolution that is not on the calendar, and a motion placing a bill or resolution on or returning a bill or resolution from the suspension calendar that is not listed on today's calendar. The purpose of this motion is to provide the public with notice concerning possible actions by council that arose too late to be included on the calendar that was published prior to today's session.
Thank you. Thank you. It has been moved and properly second that the legislative matters stated by Councilwoman Bass may be added to the agenda for today should those matters arise during the course of this council session. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. Motion passes. And our next order of business is communications. And I would ask the clerk to please read the messages from the mayor and any additional communications that he may have in his possession today.
To the President and members of the Council of the City of Philadelphia, pursuant to Sections 4604 and 2307 of the Home Rule Charter, I am today transmitting to the Council the recommendation of the City Planning Commission on the following bills. Bill numbers 220843, 220866, 220867, and 220904. And I am pleased to advise you that on November 30, 2022, I signed all the bills which were passed by Council at its session on November 17, 2022. And I am transmitting for the consideration of your honorable body a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 3418, 3420, and 3422 Kensington Avenue, located in the 7th Councilmanic District. And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 239 North Paxton Street, located in the 3rd Councilmanic District. And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 1834, 1837, 1840, 1846, and 1848 South Allison Street, 5517 Pascal Avenue, 5804 Hazel Avenue, located in the 3rd Councilmanic District. And an ordinance authorizing the revision of lines and grades on a portion of City Plan number 167 by relocating the curb lines and a portion of the southerly house line of Arch Street between 63rd Street and Grove Street in order to conform more closely with existing conditions, and by striking from the City Plan Arch Street from Grove Street to 64th Street and authorizing the opening of the area being added to the bed of Arch Street being land owned by the city, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. And our next order of business is the introduction of bills and resolutions. And I would ask that the clerk please read the titles of the bills and resolutions that are being offered by our members today.
Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson offers two resolutions. A privileged resolution recognizing, honoring, and congratulating Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated on its 103rd Founders Day.
Today's calendar.
And a privileged resolution recognizing, honoring, and congratulating Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated on its 109th Founders Day.
Today's calendar.
Councilman Jones offers 4 bills and 4 resolutions. Entitled, An Ordinance Establishing a No Truck Parking Regulation on both sides of 63rd Street between Malvern Avenue and Wynwood Road. And an ordinance continuing the Roxborough Neighborhood Improvement District beyond its termination date in an area that generally includes both sides of Ridge Avenue from Main Street, beginning with 5122 Ridge Avenue to 7220 Ridge Avenue, and certain blocks of streets that intersect that portion of Ridge Avenue. Continuing the designation of the Roxborough Development Corporation, a Pennsylvania nonprofit corporation, as the Neighborhood Improvement Management District Association for the district. And an ordinance approving a new plan, estimated cost, and proposed method of charges of the City Avenue Special Services District for and concerning business improvements and administrative services to portions of the City Avenue area of the City and Philadelphia and Township of Lower Merion. And an ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Parkside Avenue, 49th Street, Jefferson Street, and 48th Street extended.
Those four bills will be referred to the appropriate committees.
And on behalf of Council President Clark, a non-privileged resolution approving the 2022-2023 Neighborhood Preservation Initiative Program Statement and Budget, which addresses the expenditure of $100 million by various agencies in the second year of the Neighborhood Preservation Initiative Program.
Next week's calendar.
And on his own behalf, a privileged resolution celebrating, honoring, and recognizing Serena Quick on being selected as the operator of the new 4040 City Ave Chick-fil-A.
This week's calendar.
And a non-privileged resolution naming the 600 block of North 66th Street as John Skeef Way.
Next week's calendar.
And a non-privileged resolution initiating action to continue the Neighborhood Improvement District beyond its termination, Roxborough Neighborhood Improvement District beyond its termination date in an area that generally includes both sides of Ridge Avenue, from Main Street beginning with 5122 Ridge Avenue to 7220 Ridge Avenue, and certain blocks of streets that intersect that portion of Ridge Avenue, continuing the designation of the Roxborough Development Corporation as the Neighborhood Improvement District Management Association for the district.
Next week's calendar.
Councilman Johnson offers 8 bills and 2 resolutions. Entitled an ordinance authorizing the paving of 34th Street from Maiden Lane to Jackson Street, Fortin Way from Maiden Street to Jackson Street, and Jackson Street from 34th Street to Vera Avenue. And an ordinance authorizing the revision of lines and grades on a portion of City Plan numbers 24S, 25S, and 32S by relocating the existing curb lines and house lines along the western side of Vera Avenue from Maiden Lane to 28th Street, along the southern side of Maiden Lane from 34th Street to Vera Avenue, and at the intersection of Vera Avenue and Maiden Lane to accommodate the widening of certain streets and various intersection improvements. And an ordinance authorizing the revision of lines and grades on a portion of City Plan numbers 25S and 32S by placing on the City Plan 34th Street from Maiden Lane to Jackson Street, Fortin Way from Maiden Lane to Jackson Street, and Jackson Street from 34th Street to Vera Avenue. And an ordinance authorizing the striking from City Plan numbers 25S and 32S and abandonment of a certain right-of-way reserved for sewer and drainage purposes located along the former Jackson Street west of Vera Avenue and extending westwardly therefrom to 34th Street. And an ordinance authorizing the paving of Francis Harper Drive from Passyunk Avenue to Penrose Avenue, Hartraft Street from 26th Street to Schuylkill Avenue, Schuylkill Avenue from Passyunk Avenue to Penrose Avenue, and an extension of Passyunk Avenue Service Road, also known as Frontage Road, from its current terminus to Schuylkill Avenue. And an ordinance authorizing the revision of lines and grades on a portion of City Plan numbers 32S, 33S, 39S, 40S, 46S, 47S, and 53S by relocating the existing curb lines and house lines along the southerly side of Passyunk Avenue at its intersections with South 28th Street and Passyunk Avenue, Service Road, also known as Frontage Road, along both sides of Passyunk Avenue, Service Road, also known as Frontage Road, at its intersections with Francis Harper Drive and Passyunk Avenue, along the western side of 26th Street and center median of South 26th Street, and at its intersections with Passyunk Avenue, Hartraft Street, and Penrose Avenue. And an ordinance authorizing the revision of lines and grades on a portion of City Plan numbers 32S, 33S, 40S, 47S, 48S, 53S, and 56S by placing on the City Plan Francis Harper Drive from Passyunk Avenue to Penrose Avenue, Hartraft Street from 26th Street to Schuylkill Avenue, Schuylkill Avenue from Passyunk Avenue to Penrose Avenue, and an extension of Passyunk Avenue Service Road, also known as Frontage Road, to Schuylkill Avenue. And an ordinance authorizing the striking from City Plan number 40S, 47S, 48S, 53S, and 56S, and abandonment of a certain right-of-way reserved for water and gas main purposes located along the former Lanier Avenue from Penrose Avenue to former Schuylkill Avenue, and located along the former Schuylkill Avenue from Lanier Avenue to Passyunk Avenue.
Those bills just read by the Chief Clerk will be referred to the appropriate committee.
And a privilege resolution honoring Wallow 267 and Gilly the King for their community-oriented activism and philanthropy, including $4 million in grants for minority-led businesses and social service organizations.
This week's calendar.
And a non-privileged resolution approving the action of the boards of the Philadelphia Industrial Development Corporation and the Philadelphia Authority for Industrial Development to sell a property at 7411 Holstein Avenue in the Eastwick Urban Renewal Area Stage A Industrial containing approximately 3 acres to Ali Vieri Associates Incorporated.
Next week's calendar.
Councilman Squilla offers 1 bill and 2 resolutions. Entitled an ordinance authorizing the Director of Commerce and the Director of Finance to enter into amendments to multi-year agreements with the Philadelphia Authority for Industrial Development, the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority, formerly known as the Redevelopment Authority of the City of Philadelphia, and other parties as necessary concerning the parking garage project constructed as part of the overall Market Street East Gallery 2 redevelopment project.
Next week's calendar.
And a non-privileged resolution authorizing the creation of the Philadelphia Opioid Response Task Force.
Next week's calendar.
And a non-privileged resolution approving the First Amendment to Second Amended and Restated Parking Garage Development Agreement and lease estoppel of the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority for the redevelopment and urban renewal of a portion of the Market Street East urban renewal area.
Next week's calendar.
Councilwoman Bass offers 1 resolution, a privilege resolution, declaring December as World AIDS Day in the City of Philadelphia.
This week's calendar.
There are no other bills or resolutions being offered today by the members, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. That concludes our introduction of bills and resolutions. And our next order of business is reports from committees, and the chair recognizes Councilman Driscoll for a report from the Committee on License and Inspection.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on License and Inspection reports out 2 bills with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Decker, please read that report.
To the President and members of the Council of the City of Philadelphia, the Committee on Licenses and Inspections, to which is referred Bill Number 220638, entitled an ordinance amending Title IV of the Philadelphia Code, entitled the Philadelphia Building Construction and Occupancy Code, by adopting the 2018 edition of the International Residential Code, as published by the International Code Council, including maintenance of previously adopted amendments to the 2015 International Residential Code, as adopted under the Pennsylvania Uniform Construction Code Act. And Bill Number 220666, entitled an ordinance amending Chapter 93300 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Use and Inspection of Tower and Mobile Cranes in Construction, to require brakes for operators. Respectfully reports it has considered the same and returns the attached bills to Council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Chair again recognizes Councilman Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bills number 220638 and 220666.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly second that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bills number 220638 and 220666. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. And these bills will be placed on our first reading calendar today. That concludes our reports from committee. And our next order of business is consideration of the calendar. I note that the bill just reported from committee with suspension of the rules have been deemed to have had a first reading. They will be on our second reading and final passage calendar at our next session of council. As there are no additional bills on the first reading calendar, the chair recognizes Councilman Jones for the purpose of calling up resolutions and bills on the final passage calendar today.
Thank you, Mr. President. The following bills and resolutions are being called up from second reading and final passage calendars today. Numbers 220929, 220930, 220931, 220932, 220654A, 220737A, 220738A, 220739A, 220-740A, 220-829, 220-776, 220-866, 220-867, 220-868, 220-869, 220-656, and 220-665. All other bills and resolutions are being held.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Before we go to our public comment session, I want to take a point of personal privilege. I would like to have a moment of silence for a person that was known for their public comment both in and out of office. So I'd like to ask for us to have a moment of silence for all of our good friend, Brother T. Milton Street, former senator, former advocate, person who actually invented advocacy in the modern world. Can we please have a moment of silence, please? Members, please stand. Thank you so much. So we will now move to our public comment session. So before considering these resolutions, I want to say a couple of things with respect to your public comment. It must concern matters on the second reading and final passage calendar today. All speakers must sign up in order to testify. If you have not already signed up for today's session, please now do so by giving your name to the Sergeant at Arms at the table set up outside the chambers in the hallway. Once you have signed up, you will be called in the order of which your name appears on the sign-up sheet, and under ideal circumstances, which we have today, you will be given 3 minutes to speak. In order to be fair, though, we want to ensure that everybody has an opportunity to speak, so we intend to hold faithfully to the established time limit. When you begin speaking, you will see a green light on the podium, and when there are 30 seconds remaining to your time, the light on the podium will turn yellow, and when it turns red, we ask that you please comply with our guidelines and conclude your remarks. We also reserve the right, pursuant to our rules of council, to limit repetitious comments on the same subject matter. Mr. Decker, I would ask for you to please read the first name on the list today.
The first speaker today, Mr. President, is Patricia Wilson Aden.
Ms. Aden? Here? Oh, there you go. Okay.
Commenting on 220869.
This way, ma'am. Bit confused this morning. Thank you so much.
Good morning.
My name is Patricia Wilson Aden, and I'm president and CEO of the Greater Philadelphia Cultural Alliance. Last May, the arts and culture community rallied outside City Hall, calling on Mayor Jim Kinney and City Council to increase arts funding in the 2023 city budget. Using our diverse, passionate voice, we spoke to how increased public funding would allow the Philadelphia Cultural Fund to maximize its impact on our neighborhoods. We also spoke to the necessity of the city living up to its responsibility of supporting city-owned arts and cultural institutions, especially those that reside in and serve Black and brown communities. In the proposed 2022 mid-year transfer, Mayor Kinney and City Council have done exactly that by appropriating more than $20 million for arts and culture. This is unprecedented. And so today, I come before you to simply say thank you. Thank you for investing in arts and culture as the invaluable asset it is to the city of Philadelphia. Thank you for acknowledging arts and culture as an essential economic driver. Thank you for recognizing the power of our collective voice. With this mid-year transfer, the Philadelphia Cultural Fund is now slated to be funded at $5.5 million, benefiting hundreds of arts organizations across the city, and ensuring critical equity within the arts. City institutions, including the African American Museum in Philadelphia, the Mann Center, Mural Arts Philadelphia, Please Touch Museum, and the Dell will receive infusions of significant support. And visionary projects like Calder Gardens will be heralded with further support in the mid-year transfer. The Cultural Alliance has always believed that the arts in Philadelphia are an undervalued and underleveraged asset that deserve investment. This mid-year transfer shows that Mayor Kinney and City Council believe that too. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's our pleasure.
The next speaker is Jane Golden. Commenting on 220869.
My name is Jane Golden, and I'm the Executive Director of the Mural Arts Program. Good morning, everybody. Yay, art! Go art! Oh, thank you, Patty. So my name is Jane Golden, and I'm Executive Director of Mural Arts. And I'm here today to express my deep gratitude for the additional funding Mural Arts will receive in the mid-year transfer ordinance. I'm so excited. Mural Arts has served Philadelphia for 35 years, beautifying our neighborhoods, over 4,300 murals, everybody, and engaging communities through meaningful programming rooted in human dignity and social justice. Our city is always changing and evolving, and we at Mural Arts have continued to be on the move as well. Why? So we can constantly respond to whatever the needs of the city are. We want to offer our creative and organizational resources in the service of citizens across Philadelphia. Yet, in spite of this movement and evolution, we remain steadfast about our mission. That has remained unchanged. Public art has the power to inspire and ignite change. This is why I'm so excited to be here today with my esteemed colleagues from the arts, to say thank you. Thank you for investing in Mural Arts. With this additional investment, we will expand the work of the Guild, a paid apprenticeship program that gives justice-impacted young people, 18 to 26, the opportunity to develop marketable job skills and reconnect with their communities. In our restorative justice program, we work at SCI Phoenix, the county jail, and with people coming home, as well as those on probation. We have a Guild program, a women's reentry program, and the foundational Guild program. We serve 150 young people a year, and we have an astonishingly low recidivism rate of 8%. Yes. These invaluable funds will help us continue our advanced Guild program and will allow us to build our program out so we can teach additional skills, certifications, and continue to prepare young people so they can take these skills that they're learning at Mural Arts to jobs with the city of Philadelphia and far beyond. There is genius everywhere. It's our job to find it and channel it. I'd like to thank Councilman Thomas for his vision, leadership, and support of this important work. Additionally, we're so excited to start 2 new public art projects at the Chew Playground and the Martin Luther King Rec Center. Thank you to Council President Clark and Councilmember Johnson for the opportunity to create beautiful public spaces that will activate communities, represent people through public art for many years to come. These will be beacons. In closing, I want you to know we never ever take the support from the city and city council for granted. I am grateful to each and every one of the members of City Council and Mayor Kenny for this support. You inherently, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, you inherently understand the catalytic power of art and beauty, and that is huge. Please know we stand by your side in service, ready to create, ready to partner, ready to respond. I am confident that together we will continue to ignite change and make our city more beautiful, more resilient, more hopeful for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Golden. It's good to see your patented hop in person. We missed that when we were virtual. We really needed to see it in person to get the real effect. Thank you.
The next speaker is Michael Numius. Commenting on 220869.
Thank you. I'm Michael Numis of Visit Philadelphia, and today I too am honored to speak on this year's mid-year transfer. You know, I first stepped foot in this chamber nearly a decade ago. I was living in West Philly at the time and working as an assistant downtown in the tourism and hospitality industry. If you had told me then that I would build a career and develop myself from an assistant to a top leader in my field through tourism and hospitality, I wouldn't have believed you. But it happened to me, and it's happened to countless other Philadelphia residents whose livelihoods are currently supported by tourism and hospitality. In fact, in every single council district, more than 6,000 Philadelphia residents worked in our industry pre-pandemic, accounting for more than 10% of jobs held by residents in every council district. Now that data is so significant. That data shows us that it doesn't take one to see a hotel in your neighborhood to know that, like me, 1 in 10 of your neighbors are likely supported by tourism and hospitality. The pandemic's blow to our industry has been significant, but through partnerships with the City of Philadelphia and others, Philadelphia's hospitality sector has actually gone from being down 62% of jobs lost to 13% today. While that may sound impressive, we're still 10,000 jobs short. And importantly, the jobs that we have recovered still require constant visitor spending and support to remain viable. You know, at Visit Philadelphia, our research shows that there's still potential to recover and grow our visitation to restore robust demand. So we are so thankful today to the City of Philadelphia for your leadership and your vision and your support, and including funding for destination marketing initiatives in this year's mid-year transfer, as it will support jobs for residents across every council district. I want to give a special thank you to Council Member Catherine Gilmer Richardson for your continued vision and support, Council Member O'Neill, and to every member of council, because each of your offices have worked with us in different ways and supported us during what has been the most difficult time for the tourism and hospitality industry over the past 2 years. We are so grateful for this critical investment. We will continue to forge innovative, research-driven marketing initiatives to support diverse markets, including Black and Brown, Latinx, Asian, arts and culture, attractions, commercial corridors, and connect job seekers with incredible careers and livelihoods in the hospitality sector. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We appreciate it.
The next speaker is Ogbonna Higgins, commenting on 220654.
Morning.
Good morning, Ogbonna Higgins. Youth curfews may be looked at as a solution by this body, but it will not make headway in reducing youth crime and violence. The causes of youth violence is the structural characteristics of the American economy, racism, and the pathology of white supremacy. Asking each household with children to lock their doors at a prescribed time is ignoring the structural sources of youth violence. Is there a political and public interest in our youth getting murdered during the day rather than at night? There are substantial differences in living arrangements of children by race and ethnicity. Most white and Asian children are raised by two married parents, 72 and 82% respectively. 55% of Latino children are raised by two parents. But in sharp contrast, only 31% of Afro-American children are raised by two parents. More than half are being raised by a single parent. That's according to the Pew 2015 research. Has this body done any economic analysis of the impact that a curfew will have on the Afro-American single-parent household? And if this curfew provides equal protection under the law? Decreasing youth violence will require a major redistribution of wealth or policy to build Afro-American wealth through reparations. The elephant in the room is the inability of this body to properly assess the problem. Anyone and everyone who can read knows that youth curfews don't work. It is merely a colorful way to get people to accept sundown laws. Anyone who has read the newspapers in the past 10 years knows that stop and frisk is a fugitive slave law and is unconstitutional. And yet, these are the solutions this body is offering. Dr. King said, only when it's dark enough can you see the stars. We as people have seen and conquered bigger obstacles. We must rise up and be more strategic with our actions. We must simultaneously engage an inside fight against hopelessness and an outside fight by forces that block access to opportunities. Philly youth have an inalienable right to be governed by competent policy. They have an inalienable right not to be subjected to old, antiquated, racist, and prejudiced solutions. I know you don't want to, but it's time to develop a stomach for empowering the Afro-American communities in real terms. Nothing else will decrease violence.
Thank you for your testimony. We appreciate it.
The next speaker is Reverend Jay Broadax.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Reverend Jay Broadnax, and I want to offer testimony in support of the Phi Beta Sigma Founders Day resolution offered by Council Member Sora Catherine Gilmore Richardson. And I stand to offer testimony in recognition of one of the most progressive, dynamic, and service-oriented organizations in existence, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity, as a representative of its Philadelphia chapter, historic Nu Sigma chapter. Phi Beta Sigma was founded by 3 serious-minded and innovative African-American students on the campus of Howard University on January 9th, 1914. Abram Langston Taylor, an innovator, visionary, and entrepreneur. Leonard F. Morse, a scholar, religious leader, and educator. And Charles Ignatius Brown, a networker and activist, came together to establish an organization that would be inclusive rather than exclusive. An innovative fraternity for its time that from its beginnings would not judge candidates based upon social status, skin tone, or family background, but upon qualities such as integrity, character, and wisdom. These 3 founders of Phi Beta Sigma's wondrous band, through the principles of brotherhood, scholarship, and service they espoused, and through the progress-oriented actions that they undertook and modeled, spawned an international movement of Sigma men, numbered in the hundreds of thousands throughout its history. Among those who have made the decision to embrace Phi Beta Sigma's progressive, dynamic vision for change and activism are Kwame Nkrumah, former president of Ghana; James Weldon Johnson, composer of Lift Every Voice and Sing; Labor leader A. Philip Randolph; Black Panther activist Huey P. Newton; Good Trouble Congressman John Lewis; and entertainers Harry Belafonte and Ben Vereen. These are but a few of those who have worked to make Phi Beta Sigma one of the greatest organizations for social justice and community uplift ever conceived. Right here in Philadelphia, since the establishment of its Epsilon undergraduate chapter on the campus of Temple University in 1919, and its citywide graduate chapter, Nu Sigma chapter, in 1922, Phi Beta Sigma has been serving Philadelphia and its vicinity through innovative youth programming and ongoing activism through our anchor programs, Bigger and Better Business, Education, and Social Action. Phi Beta Sigma continues to deliver committed service to this city and region. In the words of our fraternity hymn, our cause speeds on its way. Until all violence ceases, our cause speeds on its way. Until every child is educated, our cause speeds on its way until poverty is eradicated. I ask that you support the establishment of the day, January 9th, as Phi Beta Sigma Founder Day, in the city of Philadelphia. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your testimony. We appreciate it.
The next speaker is Rashawn Howard.
Good morning.
Good morning. Rashawn Maurice Howard. For 109 years, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated has been serving America by its motto, culture for service and service for humanity. With over 500 chapters across America and overseas, we have been living by the motto and living by our principles, brotherhood, scholarship, and service. As the 47th and immediate past president of the Philadelphia Graduate Chapter, Nu Sigma Chapter of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, who is celebrating this year, and we've been celebrating all year, 100 years of service to this city in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, I stand in support of the resolution presented by our soror, Councilmember Catherine Gilmore Richardson, to recognize and celebrate our Founders Day on January 9th. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
The next speaker is Howard Sid Lucas.
Good morning.
Three for the founders. Good morning. What a moment. I am Howard Sid Lucas, the 40th president of Nu Sigma Chapter of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. I was educated in this great city and this magnanimous state. From Redders Elementary, which is now the Phoenix, Vaux Junior High School, which is now a high school, an academic leader in Central High School, with its first ever female principal. The blue and gold of the University of Pittsburgh, hail to Pitt, and the resounding, steadfast leadership of being a Temple University graduate alumni. On behalf of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated and the 48th president of Nu Sigma Chapter, David Richardson, this moment would not be this moment without the mention of three great women and one sister whose names need no further introduction than their names. Great Dame Marion Tasco, Council Member at Large Blondell Reynolds Brown, the next Phoenix of City Government, Sherelle L. Parker, and the sister who brings this moment full circle, Council Member at Large Catherine Gilmore Richardson. A hearty thank you for your continued support. A month short of 109 years of commendation for our founders and the institution known as Howard University, the Honorable Abram Langston Taylor, the Honorable Leonard Francis Morris, the Honorable Charles Ignatius Brown. There would be no brotherhood, scholarship, or service. There would be no culture for service and service to humanity. And there would be no 1914 leadership by them for us. To the present day, in our city and state, our leadership expands east and west. Jordan Harris, Philadelphia, to Aaron Abney, Pittsburgh. From creating, relating, and cultivating to painting the city blue in remembrance of our founders, in the word of our current international president, Chris Ray, believe. We look forward to your endorsement of this Founders Day resolution and 100 years of presence of Nu Sigma chapter in Philadelphia. And you know, look out, because we're coming through. We're going to represent Magnificent Blue. Thank you for this honor. Thank you for this moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
The next speaker is Dana Moore.
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Dana Moore, and I bring you greetings on behalf of the Philadelphia chapter, graduate chapter of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, where I serve as president. And I come before you today in support of this ordinance, which celebrates the 103rd founding of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, but it also solidifies the partnership between Zeta Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, and the city of Philadelphia. The city of Philadelphia is the home and final resting place of not only our triumphant founder, Arizona Cleaver Stemmons, who resided at 1915 Federal Street, and her final resting place is at Eden Cemetery. But it is also the final resting place for founder, the Honorable Brother Charles I. Brown of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. You see, these two organizations truly represent the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection by solidifying our bond of blue and white. We continually together honor our principles, for in Zeta scholarship, the Beta Delta Zeta chapter awards $15,000 annually, and we are the first and only organization that actually has an autism scholarship. We honor service by what we do with the March of Dimes. Currently, we have adopted the NICU at Thomas Jefferson University Hospital. Final womanhood is demonstrated every day by not only our members who are educators, attorneys, and councilwomen, but the sisterly love we show each other in supporting all of our Divine Nine sisters and our brothers. You see, this ordinance is a celebration of each and every one of us. It shows the bond of brotherly and sisterly love. We ask that you support it, and we appreciate everything that you do in council, not only through Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson, my soror, but also Councilman Kenyatta Johnson, who is the councilman of the home of our founder, which we currently own, and assisted us in the renaming of Federal Street. I ask that you support it, and I thank you for your support. And we look forward to continuing to embrace the extraordinary, as we were here in July, and we're happy to assist the economy as we painted the city royal blue and white, and we will continue to do it with our brothers when they are in the city of Philadelphia, making sure that we maintain the economy and we support our communities. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We appreciate it.
Peter Winslow, commenting on 220869.
Morning.
Good morning. My name is Peter Winslow. I speak to you today. First of all, I'm a Philadelphia resident. And I speak to you today as president of the Smart Collaboration LLC and as a candidate that the City Council recommended to Mayor Kenny for appointment to the initial Board of Directors of the Philadelphia Public Financial Authority. Special greetings and welcome to the new members of Council. Thank you, President Clark and members of Council, for this opportunity to speak today in opposition to the transfer ordinance, Bill number 220869. I join with the previous speakers in celebrating the collaboration that exists, the warm ongoing collaboration that exists between City Council and the active citizens in this community. I also applaud and thank Council Member Jones and the Appropriations Committee for the things that are in the transfer ordinance, the support for the Mural Arts Program, and for performing arts, and for tourism, all things that I support as well. Nevertheless, I urge you not to pass this bill until you make one further amendment. The refusal of Mayor Kenny to implement the ordinance that you passed and became law, ordinance number 210956, to form the Philadelphia Public Financial Authority. That refusal, the refusal to honor his oath of office, to engage in a dialogue about the issues. All of these things are very disappointing. And it'd also be disappointing if City Council were just to walk away and ignore the law that is put on the books and the existence of this opportunity to improve the city. So I urge that you make an amendment to this bill, and that amendment be to allocate $1. So it's not about the amount, it's a matter of principle. $1 allocate from line 2.5, funds going to the mayor, to line 2.1, funds retained by City Council for this purpose. And to get you started, I'll leave my dollar on the public comment podium for Mr. Decker. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I appreciate it.
The next speaker is Ebony Gale, commenting on World AIDS Day, Councilwoman Bass's resolution introduced today.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Ebony Gardner, and I'm here with Cyrilda Jones in Troy. Thank you. I wasn't sure. Thank you, Council, for listening today. My name is Ebony Gardner, Clinical Director of One Day at a Time. I ask you today to tune into this moment of reflection. World AIDS Day is an opportunity to slow down the hustle and bustle of routine and pay specific remembrance of where we have come from and where we're going. Today is a celebration. We have PrEP for high-risk negatives, life-sustaining medication for individuals who tested positive for HIV, access to services for low or no-income individuals. We no longer have to see our family and friends suffer. World AIDS Day helps us to remember, while we have come a long way, we have further to go. Our leaders at the AIDS Activities Coordinator Office help providers in the city and tri-state, like One Day at a Time, to forge a path to ending the epidemic here in the city. On this day and every day, we must continue to be intentional about our services and care and education for minority women, men who have sex with men, and persons who use intravenous drugs. As the numbers here are still growing in these communities, our 4 pillars of focus are diagnose, treat, prevent, respond. Diagnosing all Philadelphians with HIV as early as possible, treating people with HIV quickly and effectively, preventing new transmissions by promoting PrEP, NPEP, and syringe services, and responding quickly to HIV outbreaks. We may have won some battles, but not the war. Our small team at ODAC has collectively over 30 years in field, educating interns, staff, clients that come in and out of our doors. We have been trained in multiple evidence-based practices. We continue to evolve and meet our community. Here today is Cyrilda Jones, one of our staff, here to give a little testimony of hers.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Councilman, everyone that's in their respective places. I'm Cyrilda Jones. I'm one of the neutral testers at One Day at a Time, and I continue to be an advocate for the people that have no support system, that actually are still dealing with the adversity and the the different things that's going on with the HIV. People are still continuing to contract. I also came across a couple of new positives and the stigma that they're dealing with, not having the family and friends and the support. So here I am at Worth One Day at a Time. I'm the support system, their advocate, and I pretty much encourage them and try to help them with their viral and continue on helping the community with this fight. I have one, I don't know, young man that I've been working with, and he wanted to pretty much tell, if you don't mind me saying your story. He is one that I found as a new person that just maybe a week ago, and it was such a devastating thing that he wanted to, I'm his support system. He has no family, no friends. So what do we do with the people that are still struggling with this stigma, struggling with, oh, I don't want you eating off my fork. I don't want you using my bathroom because of this. But I'm here to encourage him and to let him know and being empathetic to his well-being. So if you would like to, is it okay for him to?
Thank you. Yeah. Next.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone, council people, city of Philadelphia. I'm saying here before y'all, not lost, but a living man living with a disease from which there is no known cure. But three weeks ago, I was facing a dilemma where I felt like I didn't even want to live no more. And people reached out for me, and especially with Ms. Ebony and Ms. Sherilda. Through their work and their program, within 2 weeks, turned my whole life around. Like, I come before y'all not scared to admit my disease or not, but I come to y'all to admit the goodness in people's heart and stuff that's still out there. And with all that organization, it tremendously, did it 390 on me. So I would like to get them a praise. I mean, really, man. And then there's people still out there that's living with what I'm living with and still in denial, but on the same token, they're in so much denial because they have no support system enough. Whereas that this thing they're carrying around, it can be carried on to any and everybody, and I don't think that's right because I got a conscience. But through their help and effort in my life, I'm still going on. I'm strong through God's eyes first. But here and now, I don't have a mother, father, sister, brother, nothing. She did so much for me. I would like to thank
you. Mr. Thomas?
Thank you.
Is that Mr. Thomas? Yeah, just state your name for the record. I'm sorry. Just want to make sure we have you.
Troy Thomas.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your testimony.
The next speaker is Sabrina Tate.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am following up. My name is Sabrina Tate. I am the executive director of Babashi Transition to Hope. We are an organization that was birthed out of the HIV/AIDS epidemic in 1985. We continue to service people who are identified as HIV positive, but we work for people like the gentleman who just spoke. We know that there are tens of thousands of people who are impacted by HIV/AIDS in Philadelphia. They continue to be infected. The number of people that we are testing that test positive is increasing. Despite the fact that we have a pandemic that says that we are supposed to socially distance and cover our faces, we are not educating at the rate that we used to about protecting ourselves sexually. and also identifying that we are contracting this through this opioid epidemic, right? So I am here in support of Councilmember Bass's resolution to declare today, December 1st, as World AIDS Day. It is a reminder for many to annually be checked, to be tested, and to make sure that they are educating others about how to remain safe. Seems really simplistic, it doesn't take much, but it means a lot to many. So thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for your testimony. We appreciate it.
The final speaker, Mr. President, is Sue Slauson, commenting on 220869.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Susan Slauson. Good morning. I'm making comment on ordinance 220869. Mr. President, members of City Council, and the mayor in his absence, and of course, Parks and Recreation Commissioner Catherine Ottlevel. I'm standing here today to say thank you for including Parks and Recreation. I want to thank Patricia Arden Wilson as well for advocating on our behalf. The Dell Music Center was built in 1924, so we're coming up on 100 years. It serves the city of Philadelphia, not just North Philadelphia, although it's housed there. It serves the tri-state. As a matter of fact, it has grown to serve the country because people come from all over now to enjoy the Dell Music Center. And as a result of your support, and I think this is just a great opportunity for me to say, and I won't call your names, but I will say, Mr. President, because I've gone to a number of you on different occasions when we've needed money over and over again, and you've never said no. And I want to say thank you for those moments where we were in need and you were willing to say yes. I want to say thank you to those of you that said at that appropriation, I got the call, Councilman Jones, Councilwoman Catherine Richardson, Gilmore Richardson, Councilman Isaiah Thomas, those of you that stood up and said, we need to make sure that, as you call it, the grand old lady is represented in these numbers. You stood for us. We'll continue to stand for the citizens of Philadelphia because that's what the Dell Music Center is about. It is about excellence. It is about ensuring that we serve our community and our citizens in the best way possible, with the best music, with the best customer service. You know why? Because we represent the city of Philadelphia. So I say thank you, thank you, thank you for your willingness to ensure that we were included in this appropriation and that we will continue to be included. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your work. That concludes our public comment session for today. We will now consider the bills and resolutions on the second reading and final passage calendar. Mr. Decker, would you please read the title of resolution number 220929?
A resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority deeds conveying fee simple title to 2252 Hope Street, also known as rear of 2251 North Howard Street, in the 7th Councilmanic District.
Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, please read the title 220930.
A resolution also naming the 1500 block of Wharton Street, James Matume Way, to honor the life and legacy of renowned musician, activist, and Philadelphia native James Matume.
Chair again recognizes Councilman Johnson for a motion.
Thank you, Council President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, 220931.
A resolution approving the redevelopment contract and ground lease agreement of the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority for the redevelopment and urban renewal of a portion of the South Central urban renewal area, identified by house number and street address as 614 through 626 South 13th Street, including 1306 through 1310 Cater Street and 1309 through 1313 Bainbridge Street.
Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson for a motion.
Thank you, Council President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, 220932.
A resolution unequivocally condemning the rise in anti-Semitism and all forms of hate in the City of Philadelphia, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the United States of America, and across the globe.
Chair recognizes Councilman Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. President. An attack on one faith is an attack on all faiths. According to the Anti-Defamation League, in 2021, 2,717 incidents of harassment, vandalism, or violence targeting Jews. This is the most since the Anti-Defamation League began tracking. And the current CEO, Jonathan Greenblatt, does not see any meaningful change in this trend. 4 years ago, the Tree of Life in Pittsburgh, it was the worst anti-Semitic attack in American history, took place right here in our Commonwealth, claiming the lives of 11 of our Jewish brethren. My colleague in the House of Representatives, Dan Franklin, and I wept that day, and we wept for the 11 casualties, we wept for the members of that congregation, and we wept for humanity. And recently, the Republican Party nominated a candidate for governor that actively recruited supporters from the same far-right extremist social media platform used by the Tree of Life attacker. Never again is supposed to be never again. But many people, young and old, do not know what the Holocaust was. People do not usually acknowledge that Hitler came to power through democratic means until he dismantled the government and became a totalitarian, autocratic, genocidal maniac. The attempted erasure of Jewish people began with the boycotting of shops and the banning of books. Within years, it devolved into the mass imprisonment and extermination of Jewish and other marginalized groups with the goal to leave one pure white race. We must never forget hatred and evil. When allowed to boil, it can explode. And so, Mr. President, with that, I move for the adoption of this resolution.
Thank you. It's been moved in second. The resolution be adopted. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is definitely adopted. Thank you. Mr. Decker, please read the title of Bill number 220654A.
An ordinance amending Chapter 10300, entitled Minors, to revise the evening curfew hours.
This bill has been read on 2 different days. The question now, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll. You got one of them? Councilwoman, no, I'm sorry.
Much, Council President. I just wanted to provide additional clarification prior to the vote on Bill number 220654A. I wanted to clarify some of the amendments that were passed by this body last week, including in Chapter 10-303, which further clarifies some of the provisions in the bill around youth who are engaged in gainful, lawful employment at the time of the curfew, that those youth would not be penalized in any way because of them going to and from work. In addition to that, we did meet with the Juvenile Law Center, and we wanted to make additional clarification around there being no penalties for homeless youth who are out after curfew, because many of them need connection to resources and additional services. And also we added reporting requirements to the legislation that would begin on January 1, 2023, which is an additional section 10-306, which would provide for quarterly reporting to City Council from the Philadelphia Police Department and the Department of Human Services, so that we are receiving additional information on the back end around implementation and enforcement, particularly around connecting young people to the community evening resource centers, now that we have 4 and we're working towards having 6, 1 in every police division in the city of Philadelphia. So I wanted to get that on the record for the benefit of this body and also for those who are listening to the session. Thank you, Council President. And with that, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. The chair recognizes Councilman Phillips.
Aye. Council President, I just wanted to rise to echo my support of this particular bill, 220654. As one who's worked with students in Philadelphia, I understand the importance of children not being on the street to have a better life. And I believe this bill increases their likelihood of success in life. One of the things that I just want to mention about this bill is that, at a time when it seems there's no outer limit of senseless whirlwind of violence facing teens and young people, I think we're taking a temporary emergency step in the absence of a cure at all. So really
Awesome.
huge support of it.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Decker, let's read the title over again. We can start from the beginning.
Bill number 220654A, an ordinance amending Chapter 10300 entitled Minors to revise the evening curfew hours, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. This bill has been read on 2 different days. The question now is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, please call the roll now.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Brooks. Councilman Driscoll. Councilwoman Gautier. Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson. Councilman Harity. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilwoman Lozada. Councilman O. Councilman O'Neill. Councilman Phillips. Councilman Squilla. Councilman Thomas. Councilwoman Vaughn. Council President Clark.
Aye. The ayes are 15, the nays are 1. Majority of all members present voting in affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 220737A.
An ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of South 17th Street and Dickinson Street, Ellsworth Street and South 20th Street, Federal Street and South 15th Street, Federal Street and South 20th Street, Federal Street and South 21st Street, Federal Street and South 22nd Street, Federal Street and South 23rd Street, and Alter Street.
Thank you. This bill has been read on 2 separate days. The question now, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Brooks. Councilman Driscoll. Councilwoman Gautier. Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson. Councilman Harity. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilwoman Lozada. Councilman O. Councilman O'Neill. Councilman Phillips. Councilman Squilla. Councilman Thomas. Councilwoman Vaughn. Council President Clark.
Aye. The ayes are 16, the nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 220738A.
An ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of Fitzwater Street and South 18th Street, Kidder Street and South 19th Street, Taney Street and South 20th Street and South Street, South 17th Street and Fitzwater Street, Cleveland Street and Carpenter Street.
Thank you. This bill has been read on 2 different days. The question now, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Brooks. Councilman Driscoll. Councilwoman Gautier. Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson. Councilman Harity. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilwoman Lozada. Councilman O. Councilman O'Neill. Councilman Phillips. Councilman Squilla. Councilman Thomas. Councilwoman Vaughn. Council President Clark.
Aye. Ayes are 16, the nays are 0. The majority of members present voting in affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 220739A.
An ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of Titan Street and South 19th Street, Oakford Street and South 21st Street, Wharton Street and Point Breeze Avenue, South 15th Street and Wharton Street, Reed Street and South 18th Street to South 22nd Street, and South 17th Street and Reed Street.
Thank you. This bill has been read on 2 different days. The question now, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Brooks. Councilman Driscoll. Councilwoman Gautier. Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson. Councilman Harity. Councilman Johnson, Councilman Jones, Councilwoman Lozada, Councilman O, Councilman O'Neill, Councilman Phillips, Councilman Squilla, Councilman Thomas, Councilwoman Vaughn, Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 16 and nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 220740A.
An ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of Webster Street and Broad Street, South 11th Street and Bainbridge Street, Kimball Street, and South 11th Street.
This bill having been read on 2 different days, the question now, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass, Councilwoman Brooks, Councilman Driscoll, Councilwoman Gautier, Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson, Councilman Harity, Councilman Johnson, Councilman Jones, Councilwoman Lozada, Councilman O'Neill, Councilman O, Councilman Phillips, Councilman Squilla, Councilman Thomas, Councilwoman Vaughn, Council President Clark.
Aye, ayes are 16 and nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 220829A.
An ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of Columbia Avenue and Frankfurt Avenue, Belgrade Street and Susquehanna Avenue, Belgrade Street and Palmer Street, Howard Street and Thompson Street, Howard Street and Girard Avenue, Oxford Street and Frankfurt Avenue, Moyer Street and Palmer Street, Thomas Street and North 3rd Street.
This bill having been read on 2 different days, the question now, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass, Councilwoman Brooks, Councilman Driscoll, Councilwoman Gautier, Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson, Councilman Harity, Councilman Johnson, Councilman Jones, Councilwoman Lozada, Councilman O, Councilman O'Neill, Councilman Phillips, Councilman Squilla, Councilman Thomas, Councilwoman Vaughn, Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 16 and nays are 0. Majority of all members present voting in affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 220776.
An ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Cotman Avenue, the Montgomery County line, the Bucks County line, Interstate 95, Grant Avenue, and Roosevelt Boulevard.
This bill having been read on 2 different days, the question now, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass, Councilwoman Brooks, Councilman Driscoll, Councilwoman Gautier, Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson, Councilman Harity, Councilman Johnson, Councilman Jones, Councilwoman Lozada, Councilman O, and Councilman O'Neill, Councilman Phillips, Councilman Squilla, Councilman Thomas, Councilwoman Vaughn, Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 16 and nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 220866.
An ordinance amending Bill Number 220284 entitled An Ordinance to Adopt a Capital Program for the 6 fiscal years 2023 through 2028 inclusive by revising various appropriation amounts and totals to conform to amendments to the FY 2023 Capital Budget Ordinance.
Thank you. This bill having been read on 2 different days, the question now, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass, Councilwoman Brooks, Councilman Driscoll, Councilwoman Gautier, Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson, Councilman Harity, Councilman Johnson, Councilman Jones, Councilwoman Lozada, Councilman O, Councilman O'Neill, Councilman Phillips, Councilman Squilla, Councilman Thomas, Councilwoman Vaughn, Council President Clark.
Aye. Ayes are 16 and nays are 0. Majority of all members present voting in affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 220867.
An ordinance amending Bill Number 220285 entitled An Ordinance to Adopt the Fiscal 2023 Capital Budget by revising various appropriation amounts and totals.
This bill having been read on 2 different days, the question now, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass, Councilwoman Brooks, Councilman Driscoll, Councilwoman Gautier, Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson, Councilman Harity, Councilman Johnson, Councilman Jones, Councilwoman Lozada, Councilman O, Councilman O'Neill, Councilman Phillips, Councilman Squilla, Councilman Thomas. Councilwoman Vaughn. Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 16 and nays are 0. Majority of all members present voting in affirmative, the bill passed. Mr. Decker, 220-868.
An ordinance authorizing transfers and appropriations for fiscal year 2022 from the General Fund, the Water Fund, the Water Residual Fund, the Grants Revenue Fund, and the Aviation Fund from certain Oil City offices, departments, boards, and commissions to the General Fund, the Water Fund, the Water Residual Fund, and the Aviation Fund, certain Oil City offices, departments, boards, and commissions.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you very much, Council President. I do have something to say about these transfer ordinances. They're wonderful ordinances. I know my colleagues, everybody here has exercised tremendous leadership. There's a lot of people, a lot of great organizations that need this money, our departments as well. However, I am going to point out something that is very troubling to me, and I think I have no other way to express my great concern than to seek a motion that we table the vote. And I'm just going to say this. The great failure of our city, we see in gun violence and murder, wanton crime, failure in education, failure in jobs, failure in so many ways, but addressing them as we do, contained in this transfer ordinance is $500,000 and $500,000. This body, with the cooperation of the mayor, the support of the mayor, upon learning that innocent persons, mothers of children, were being targeted for retribution simply because they're the mothers of children, that someone unable to get to someone they want to kill starts shooting at that person's mother, sister, and brother. Why those people identified to us are not being protected, why they cannot be afforded an ability to live without getting shot at, assaulted, attacked, is a great failure. The district attorney's office has a function. It is not to relocate these people. They do relocate witnesses who are going to testify. That is a temporary location. Put them in a hotel, put them in a motel. After the trial's over, they go back home. We are talking about vulnerable people who cannot remain at home, and that is a failure. So this $500 that we appropriated was for the immediate relocation of the mothers and their children as young as 8 years old who were being literally shot at. It is just a matter of time before they're killed. A year later, after another year previous that they had not been relocated, they are still not moved. And then we learned at a recent hearing that the department that we asked to be responsible for this money, to give that money to a nonprofit that can move them immediately, Every Murder is Real, Amir, and other organizations like that, received not one penny. Nobody has been moved. This was since October of 2021. Nobody has moved. Now we learn the money was moved to a nonprofit organization, not to move people, but for various costs. The administration, in a letter, says the money is still sitting there. But then they are moving another $500,000 to an organization, a department of our city, that says they don't have an ability to move people. And in fact, they said it's council's fault for giving us money that we can't do things with. So now the administration says part of the $500,000 will be used to hire people in that office. That's not what this money is for. That's $1 million, and not one person has been moved. One of the persons who's testified is 23 years old. Very well known by council member, majority leader, chair of public safety, Curtis Jones, who has talked about her and has helped her and her family. She's 23 years old. She has 2 children. Riding in a car, someone shot into the car and she lost her eye. She has headaches, she has pain, she can't function in the morning, she takes her medication, she can't function after that. A month or 2 later, the father of her children was murdered. and she is harassed and attacked, and she cannot receive protection. $7,000 she paid in medical bills, and beyond that, she still has medical bills. She has been denied disability. She doesn't have any funds. $1 million, not a penny to help these people, not a penny to move these people. The woman who testified or who went forward to the news, trying to keep her identity unknown, was on television, in the newspaper. The neighborhood knew who she was. And it is not surprising she got a gun. After being beaten and shot at, her children running away, unsafe, she got a gun. Well, that gun was used in 2 murders, so now she's in prison, facing murder charges. 2 years of not relocating people, $1 million, that is a failure, and a letter, it's unacceptable. Unacceptable. We have a hearing, there was notice, you have to come in, let us know what happened to money, where it went, what is it being used for. We get a letter, it's not satisfactory. That money must be returned. The money must be used to relocate these people, pay for their injuries, their harm. That money represents our city's will to address violent, deadly retribution against innocent people. We're not built for this, but we better get built. My thing is, it is unacceptable to me that this administration, with the wonderful things it does and all the money it has, cannot tell us what happened to $500,000. How many times are we going to do this? It's 2 years. It's a year. Move the people. Put their kids in school. Don't put them in a motel, hotel, PHA housing where everybody knows where they are. Move them to safety. Maybe you will find that people will have some confidence in our city, will be witnesses, will testify, will cooperate. We know who the shooters are. We know who terrorized these people. They must be apprehended. They must be prosecuted. It is inexcusable. It is not anything but murder waiting to happen. This city has to account for the $500,000. With that, I will make a motion to table this vote. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. There's been a motion to table. Is there a second? You need to be on this side of the rail to do that. Sorry. I appreciate your sentiment, though. No second, Councilman. There's not a second, so your motion to table is denied. Okay. Mr. Decker, let's start again with the title. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think that the councilman made some very valid points, and they need to be explored. And so while there is not a second for the motion, I think that there needs to be, a commitment from this body to follow through on the concerns that we all have that have just been brought forward from Councilman O under your leadership. So I think that we all want to address this. It needs to be addressed right away. It's not something that can wait. And so even though there wasn't a second for the motion, the issue still stands and needs to be addressed by this body.
I concur, Councilwoman. This is clearly something that needs to be addressed. Chair recognizes Councilman Thomas.
Thank you, Council President. I just wanted to echo the sentiments of my colleague, Councilmember Bass, and I was going to save it for my speech in the majority, but I guess that speech will be cut a little bit short. Not only have we allocated money for witnesses and witnesses to be relocated, when we're putting on our hat around this issue of crime and violence in the city, we've also allocated money for cameras that have not been purchased, that have not been put up, and we're still fighting for that. We've also allocated money for hit and run technology Captain Overwise and his team came before the Public Safety Committee as well as the Streets Department 2 years ago when we were in the middle of a hit-and-run epidemic, which we're still a part of right now, to act for a certain type of technology instead of continuing to use tape measures and rulers and things of that capacity in the year 2020, and that's ridiculous. The reason I bring those things up, because I do agree with Councilmember O's concern, but one of the reasons I didn't second it is because it's the responsibility of this legislative body to put ourselves in a position to be able to make votes and decide where funds should go, not to spend the money. So while I agree with his concern that the money needs to be spent on the right thing, I agree with his concern that we need to advocate and make sure that we're fighting for those who cannot necessarily fight for themselves. I agree with the sense of urgency and the sense of emergency that we need as it relates to the crime in the city of Philadelphia. We have to continue to do our job to put money in places and in spaces that we know will improve the city of Philadelphia, and we have to continue to push the administration to spend the money. So I appreciate Councilmember O's speech. I agree with Councilmember Bass, but I also wanted to add those two things to the list as well too, because we feel like those things, along with I'm sure many others, will improve the issues around public safety and crime in the city of Philadelphia. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Yes, thank you, Council President. I know that it is a concern to every member of this body. It is a concern to everyone in our city and to the administration as well. There are different approaches to how this will be resolved. I echo the concerns of Councilmember Thomas in the sense that we do appropriate money, and when the administration does not use that money as it was specifically appropriated, we continue to appropriate and appropriate and appropriate. There comes a point in time where the only thing we can do is withhold. I understand my colleagues, as I said, there's a lot of good things in this bill. There's a lot of things that need to be funded. I do want to also thank Councilmember Catherine Gilmore Richardson for her leadership on this issue. Her advocacy has been very strong with the administration, and I think, if nothing else, the administration, I hope, will take this as a very serious warning on my part. I would not give them another penny. Me personally, if I could, but government must function, so we have different views, but they need to come into some level of compliance with what they say they will do and blatantly do not do on something as important as people's lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Council President. I apologize. I was seeking to be recognized as well and wanted to thank Councilmember O for his advocacy and for the hearing that was held last week. But I also want to thank Councilmember Jones, our new Chair of Appropriations, who has really guided us through this process and the very detailed work. But I wanted to again thank Councilmember O because on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I sent a communication directly to the administration, copied Councilmember O and our colleagues regarding the questioning at the hearing, the public safety hearing, about the relocation of the witnesses. And we in this body have done our part to allocate the funds to ensure that those individuals could be moved. However, the administration has yet to spend that allocation. That is happening all too frequent with a number of matters that we have faced with a sense of urgency in this body. So I am respectfully requesting that as we move forward in our budget process for next fiscal year, that the administration take notice, that they are not going to move forward with the issues and the agenda of the day from this body, that we will take that as a note as we move forward in the budget process next year. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is not my first transfer ordinance. But I can tell you that our chairman, his first transfer ordinance is the best process and the best result that I've ever seen. And discussions were made, and Councilman Jones made it clear that all the concerns that have been mentioned will be taken seriously. It's not going to be a repeat performance every time a bill gets signed by the mayor, agreeing to everything that's in it, or it wouldn't be signed, and then it just gets ignored. So I want to thank Councilman Jones and the whole committee, because this really was a landmark transfer ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Good thing Councilwoman Sanchez is not still here, sir. It was definitely one of the best. That's all I'm saying. Always a diplomat. Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Councilman, I understand. Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass. One more time.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. But really briefly, I just wanted to follow up on Councilwoman Kathy Gilmore Richardson's comments regarding the upcoming budget, well, the next budget season. And as we send a message to the administration, I would say that not just waiting until we get to the budget cycle to making sure that the administration hears us, but I think that if we really want to do something about the concerns expressed by Councilman O, then we need to do something before we get to the budget cycle. I think that's what you meant, but I just wanted to clarify, like that we not wait until we get to the actual budget to take some action, because these are very important issues. Crime is it's at the top of everybody's list of something that, what needs to be addressed in the city of Philadelphia. And, like if we don't do something to protect our witnesses, this is going to continue. What we have now is going to continue.
Absolutely.
So, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Okay. No, I understand. I can't speak from the podium. It's not to influence the vote, but Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
No, I just want to echo the sentiments of my colleagues, but particularly around, and I participated in some of the hearing last week regarding the relocation of witnesses, and the response was totally unacceptable. And it's actually embarrassing, because when we talk about reaching close to 500 homicides here in the city of Philadelphia, and we taking a position that addressing the issue of gun violence is our number one priority, then we shouldn't be talking about the allocation of funding and how witnesses are being relocated. You can't solve a homicide if you don't have witnesses coming forward. And so if you have witnesses being shot at, you have witnesses being murdered, then we'll have this revolving cycle of homicides. And so I want to specifically echo what Councilwoman Bass talked about, that we don't have time to wait at the end of the day. Like, we're not going to wrap up and go home for the holiday and still not deal with this issue. And so I'm all in. We can meet after council. We can get together. And we can address the administration and figure out how we're addressing this issue. Because at the end of the day, it totally is unacceptable. All the other issues that we supported is great. But the issue of people losing their lives day in and day out, people being frightened to come forward, is definitely totally unacceptable. So I'm all in, and I want to get with my colleagues after this, and we can move forward and go from there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Vaughn.
Thank you, Councilman. I, too, want to go on record as saying that one of the main issues that I discussed throughout my campaign is the gun violence that we have in the city of Philadelphia. I, too, am all in whatever it takes for us to try to get a hand on what's happening throughout the city of Philadelphia. And if it means that we stop the bully in the administration and make him comply to some of our requests, however that may happen, that's what we need to do. Because that's what we have on the streets already. The bullies are intimidating the witnesses and so on and so on, and it has to stop somewhere. And if we can't get a control of it here, how can we expect them to handle it out there?
Yeah, I understand. Thank you, Councilwoman. There will definitely be follow-up, trying to influence the decision. Thank you. All right, Mr. Decker, let's start all over again.
Bill number 220868, entitled An Ordinance Authorizing Transfers in Appropriations for Fiscal Year 2022 from the General Fund, the Water Fund, the Water Residual Fund, the Grants Revenue Fund, and the Aviation Fund, from certain all city offices, departments, boards, and commissions to the General Fund, the Water Residual Fund, and the Aviation Fund to certain all city offices, departments, boards, and commissions.
Thank you. This bill having been read on 2 different days, the question now, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Brooks. Councilman Driscoll. Councilwoman Gautier. Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson. Councilman Harity. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilwoman Lozada. Councilman O. Councilman O'Neill. Councilman Phillips. Councilman Squilla. Councilman Thomas. Councilwoman Vaughn. Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 16, the nays are 0. Majority of all members present voting in the affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 220869.
An ordinance authorizing transfers and appropriations for fiscal year 2023 from the General Fund, the Water Fund, and the Grants Revenue Fund, certain all city offices, departments, boards, and commissions to the General Fund, the Water Fund, the Aviation Fund, and the Grants Revenue Fund, certain all city offices, departments, boards, and commissions.
Thank you. This bill has been read on 2 different days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Brooks. Councilman Driscoll. Councilwoman Gautier. Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson. Councilman Harity. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilwoman Lozada. Councilman O. Councilman O'Neill. Councilman Phillips. Councilman Squilla. Councilman Thomas. Councilwoman Vaughn. Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 16, and nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in the affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 220656.
An ordinance adding a new chapter 6-1400 to the Philadelphia Code entitled Privacy of Certain Health Information to establish privacy protections for information related to reproductive health care.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Brooks for an amendment to bill number 220656.
Thank you, Council President. I move that bill number 220656 be amended. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of council.
Thank you. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. And bill number 220656 has been amended. Bill number 220656 as amended will be placed on our final passes calendar at our next session of council. Mr. Decker, please read the title of 220665.
An ordinance amending Title VI of the Philadelphia Code entitled Health Code to establish legal protections related to entities or individuals seeking, providing, or assisting others to obtain reproductive services.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gautier.
To offer an amendment to bill number 220665. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of council. I move for the adoption of the amendment.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. And bill number 220665 has been amended. Bill number 220665 as amended will be on our final passes calendar at our next session of council. Mr. Decker, you have any additional resolutions?
A resolution recognizing, honoring, and congratulating Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated on its 103rd Founders Day, introduced today by Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Council President. On behalf of all the members of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated worldwide, all of us who are choosing to embrace the extraordinary, on behalf of our international president, Dr. Stacey N.C. Grant, I move the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and probably second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that motion is adopted.
And a resolution recognizing, honoring, and congratulating Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated on its 109th Founders Day, introduced today by Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you. Chair again recognizes Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Council President. On behalf of all the members of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated who believe in culture for service and service for humanity, I move the adoption of the resolution.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and the motion is adopted.
And a resolution celebrating, honoring, and recognizing Serena Quick on being selected as the operator of the new 4040 City Ave Chick-fil-A, introduced today by Councilman Jones.
Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption and lunch.
You should have brought a sample, sir. Here we get a second. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution honoring Wallow 267 and Gilly the King for their community-oriented activism and philanthropy, including $4 million in grants from minority-led businesses and social service organizations, introduced today by Councilman Johnson.
You said Johnson.
Councilman Johnson, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution declaring December as World AIDS Day in Philadelphia, introduced today by Councilwoman Bass.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before we call for the adoption of the resolution, I wanted to thank the folks who came down today during public comment from ODAT, One Day at a Time. Also, Mr. Troy Thomas, who told his personal story, as well as Ms. Sabrina Tate, who was here from Babashi. I wanted to thank all of them for coming down today. And just as a reminder that we need to do this because people still die from AIDS. 13,000 people die in the United States annually still from HIV and AIDS. So, this is a day to remember those that we have lost, over the many, many years that AIDS has been around, and also to do the preventive work so that we can stop the numbers from increasing, particularly here in the city of Philadelphia, to do what we can around AIDS prevention. And with all that being said, Mr. President, I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
There are no other resolutions on the final passage calendar, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. We will now move to our speeches. Any speeches on behalf of the minority? Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you very much, Council President. I wanted to just give my condolences to the city workers and municipal-related workers who have lost their lives. Recently, I saw, and perhaps many people saw, the shocking video of a parking authority worker simply doing his job and without provocation was walked up from behind and shot in the back of the head. The only identifying thing that I can see is he was wearing a uniform. Prior to that, we had a sanitation worker who was in the midst of doing his job, working, picking up the trash, and he was shot and killed. And unfortunately, over the summer, people firing multiple bullets into a recreation center with children and people hit one of our workers. These are critical functions for our city. It is very problematic and troubling, but it's also very sad. We are, despite whatever differences we have in our opinions, a family of people who serve the public interest. And we must do something about that. No one should fear that they will be harmed because of the uniform or initiative or logo they wear, representing this city of Philadelphia and its functions. Beyond that, my condolences to all family, friends, and loved ones, and it certainly is additional reason that we have to step up. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Speeches on behalf of the majority. Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last night, I had the honor and privilege of representing this body on the celebration of the House of Umoja. Sister Falaka Fatab, a 90-year-old young activist, still packs a punch when it comes to the issue of our babies, gun violence prevention, and what to do about it. I was in the African American Museum with a crowd of individuals who were both 70s related and millennial and Gen Z, recognizing her contribution to this effort. Some of them encouraged her to teach. Some of them encouraged her to come out of retirement to get back involved, but all of them supported her. But the star of the panel of which I was on was a young man, teenager, somewhat shy and reserved, but his words were piercing. So when he was asked a direct question about how to end gun violence, he looked back and said, "It's not going to end." And everybody gasped and said, "Well, tell us what to do." And so he mentioned a couple of things, but pretty much what was the answer was that we have to not be afraid of the things we say we love. We have to talk to these young people. Coach, I look at you because you do it every day. And we talk at them, but sometimes we don't listen to them. We have to do more listening to them to get the answers from them, not what we think they should do and what we want them to do. We have to really pay attention. The second thing that I took from that celebration and recognition was that more and more people were saying what Member O was talking about. Like, we appropriated, and I talked to my colleague, over $300 million over the last 2 years. We have done our part. But we have to get more accountability about those dollars, because if it ain't working, we need to rethink what we are doing. Finally, one of the things that came out of that discussion was that some of the activists there want to hold parents more accountable for what happens in their home. Remember, Bass always talks about, what do you do when the shooter lives with you? And I was talking to a young person and an old head, which I hate to be called, but they said that there is a game being played now with poo shiesties. And what a poo shiesty is a mask that covers most of your identifying features. It is a mask that came from a rapper who did videos who stuck people up with this mask. Now, they've told me, you should introduce a law banning this. I will not. I have my share of hoodies at home. I respect our ability to choose what we wear, to not limit our children. But if they think this is dressing for success, they are wrong. They played a game where they jump out on an old head at a convenience store and run up on them. It's scary. They didn't have guns, so, they weren't a threat. And it was funny until the old head pulled out his gun. It ain't no fun hunting when the rabbit get the gun. So we have to teach our kids better. We have to show them how to dress for success. We have to give them a reason to want to grow older, to be a part of society. But I say to them, no, we won't introduce the law, but I remember coming up, if you had a crowbar in your car or on your person, that was a tool to do burglaries. This is not a tool to get a job, to go to school, and particularly when it's 80 degrees out. We have to, parents, you got to look into your rooms. If you see these kind of gloves and this kind of hat, you need to raise that question with your children as to why they need that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Thomas.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you, Majority Leader Jones. That was a phenomenal speech, and I think you made a great point. I just want to take a moment to first and foremost welcome our new colleagues in the council. Council President, I know you did that earlier, but I wanted to welcome you here. The other day was a great ceremony, but it's nothing like being on the actual council floor. So welcome to the team. I also wanted to offer my condolences to Mr. Milton Street and the entire Street family. I agree with you, Council President, when you talk about advocacy in his history of the city. He sure made his presence known and made advocacy a part of his DNA. And thank our colleague, Councilmember Bass, for her leadership around today being World AIDS Day and recognizing the important work that must continue to happen. Earlier in council, I had the privilege of welcoming and introducing Asil Greer, who again we recognized in June as one of our champions of the week. And the reason why I bring him up is similar to what Councilmember Jones talked about. When we do this work on a consistent basis, we're thinking about the youth and the young people in the city of Philadelphia. One of the things I often challenge us to is how do we treat our children here in the city? What are we doing to inspire them and to make them feel like there is hope? It's imperative that we give young people a platform to be able to show off their skills and to be able to let us know and the city know what it is they're doing. But it's also important that we follow that up with action. And I think today, not just with the introduction of the MPI bill, thinking about what Councilmember O talked about around city employees, MPI is going to be something that's going to benefit city employees in a great way. We know we have to step up and do more to protect them and citizens across the city of Philadelphia. One of the things that I did a little while back was I had a press conference that Councilmember Clark and Squilla, Driscoll, Johnson, Gilmore, Richardson, and you, Council President, all supported. And in that press conference, we talked about things that we need to do to be able to address the crime and the gun violence in the city of Philadelphia. And today, I'm very proud of what we were able to accomplish as it relates to this transfer ordinance. We're blessed to be in a position as a city to have the surplus that we have. We may never see this surplus again. So to be able to sit here today and to know that we put money into things that we advocated for earlier this year around cleaning up the city. Councilmember O is exactly right around witness and victim protection. One of the things that we know, 42% of the time, a case is dismissed or thrown out in the city of Philadelphia that's related to guns and crimes. It's because a witness or a police officer didn't show up. So what are we doing as a legislative body to do our part to allocate funds and resources to address that number? Because that percentage is extremely alarming. So while we do have a number of concerns and the work will continue, I am here today to what I would like to call a victory lap as it relates to the spending and the dollars that are being allocated for the arts and for prevention-based initiatives. A lot of times, young men that Councilmember Jones talked about who are wearing those masks, who are involved in negative activities, the narrative is very similar. It starts because they're bored. It starts because they don't have anything to do. It starts because in the city of Philadelphia right now, we don't have very many options as it relates to free programming for our teenagers if you're not involved in extracurricular activity within your school. So it's our responsibility to step up and come up with innovative ideas and resources for those young people. And at the end of the day, today was a step in the right direction as it relates to filling that gap. Thank you, Council President, and thank you, colleagues, for the work that was done. And I agree with Councilmember O'Neill. We appreciate the leadership of our Majority Leader and our Appropriations Chair. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gautier.
Thank you, Council President. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank my colleagues for voting yes on $3 million that will be allocated to fix the Sayre Pool in Cobbs Creek. I want to especially thank our Majority Leader, Jones, who is now chairing the Appropriations Committee, all my colleagues on the Appropriations Committee, and I also want to thank the Mayor and his administration for supporting this appropriation, too. I don't know that I can express how meaningful this is to me and to my community. The Sarah Pool issue was something that was brought to me pretty early on after I started in 2020. Community members came to me and they were telling me about this pool that had been shut down for a few years and how they needed it to be opened back up for the community. And, you know, hearing this issue, I don't think I had an adequate picture of what it was that they were talking about and the asset that the community was losing out on. And it wasn't until I visited the pool that I really got it. And, you know, I learned that this was a huge Olympic-sized pool that was just sitting there, unused, not able to be, you know, accessed by our community. And it seemed to me like such a waste. Why would we let an asset like that just be closed off to our community members? And so, you know, together with the community, we started, you know, advocating, right? And we were advocating at that time to the school district who owns the pool. And I should also say that the Sarah Pool, prior to its closure, had been open for over 50 years servicing the community, and scores of Black children in particular learned to swim at that pool. It's even the focus of a movie called Pride, based on how important it was to the city of Philadelphia and to Black children learning how to swim there. And so the loss of the pool was huge, and it also took away a place where Parks and Recreation would train our lifeguards in West Philadelphia, and it left us with virtually no space to adequately train lifeguards in our section, in the west section of the city. And it contributed to us not being able to fully open pools every single summer because we don't have adequate places to train lifeguards. And so it was a huge loss, not only to the Cobbs Creek community, but to the city at large. And so we began advocating to the school district of Philadelphia, and, you know, maybe after several months, the board voted down a recommendation to make a $10 million investment in the restoration of the pool. And so that was, you know, really disappointing for the community, for me. And I think the district at that time, or the school board at that time, voted down the motion because they saw that $10 million as a huge amount, as a huge price tag, especially given all their other responsibilities throughout the school district. But to the community, this asset was priceless. I remember going to a rally, you know, shortly after that vote, where the community was outside the center and they're advocating for the pool's reopening. And when I got to the rally, in the middle of the street, there's a casket. And the casket was a symbol of what we were losing by not opening that pool, because the community gets that if we don't have safe outlets for our young people, that contributes to violence in our city, right? And so this is not just a pool. This is a way that we can keep young people productive, having fun, and on the right path. And so at that point, you know, I began advocating to my colleagues, right, about the importance of investing in this pool, and which resulted in this appropriation and the transfer ordinance. And so I'm hopeful that now that we collectively have virtually cut the price tag in half for the school district, with the $3 million we voted on today, and with another $1 million from my own capital budget and from Rep. McClinton's capital budget, I hope to work in partnership with the school district to find another $4 million ASAP to get this asset open for the Cobbs Creek community and the city at large. And we've talked a lot today about the the things that we don't want young people to do. And I'm a participant in that, a full participant in that conversation, right? We don't want them to engage in certain activities. We just voted on a curfew bill. But what are we willing to invest in young people, right? Alongside all of the things that we're telling them we don't want them to do, what are we willing to invest? And I think this is a good example of how we should also be willing to invest and not skimp on things that will allow our young people to have a healthy and productive future. And so thank you so much. And I also just want to say, you know, I've learned a lot over these past 3 years being in council, but one thing that makes me so proud about this particular issue is that it's an example of, even with all of the things that are going on in my district and across the city, from our positions on council, if we focus and if we are determined, we can make really big and cool things happen for our communities, and that's really powerful. So thanks again to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Vaughn. Like the way that sounds, huh?
Yeah, I do. I chuckle every time I hear it. I want to thank this body for making me feel welcome. And I, too, want to send my condolences to the Street family on the loss of Milton. When I was a little younger here, Milton made politics exciting to me. He was here on the floor fighting for the rights of the people, and I used to look forward to just catching him down here along with his brother John Street. And you know, you just never knew what to expect from him, and to me that made council exciting. Jumping over the rails, fighting, rumbling in the floor, cussing folks out. I fell in love with it after that. I guess I like drama. The other thing is a long-term person, Marion Johnson, who worked for decades for Councilwoman Marion Tasco, left us this week. And I wanted to just have her name mentioned on the floor here today, and possibly just ask you all to keep her family in prayer. Ms. Johnson was the zoning specialist of Philadelphia. If you ever wanted to get something done or passed in zoning, you went to her. And she didn't have a hard time telling you to keep quiet and let her explain to you how it's done. And that I admire her. I want to thank her family for sharing her with us for all those decades. I want to let everyone know that I'm sure the Logan family is, the Logan part of the city is mourning her loss, because we just named the street after her not too long ago. And just remember that her tenacious and contagious personality, it will be something that we'll always remember. Marion Johnson is a force that we will never forget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Yes, she was an awesome lady. Thank you. Absolutely. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Welcome.
She was an awesome lady. She was very special. I also wanted to offer condolences as well to the family of T. Milton Street. You know, as a young person growing up in North Philadelphia in the 70s and 80s, you know, ear hustling to, you know, grown folks' conversation, you know, you would hear the conversation about the streets and what they were doing and the impact that it was having on the lives of African Americans. And I think that it was so different because many of the elected officials who had, many of the African American elected officials who held seats at that time were sort of handpicked. And they weren't handpicked by other African Americans. They were, you know, they were holding seats, but they weren't really the designee necessarily, I would say, of the people that they were representing. And so Milton Street and his brother John Street really brought something different in terms of representation to the table. And so His voice will be missed, and he was just such a spitfire. He will really be missed in all aspects of government. I also wanted to just mention really quickly around the support for city workers, as was mentioned earlier, and the losses that we've had. It's a segue into a hearing that we're going to be having this afternoon. I want to remind the members of a hearing that we're having for Parks and Recreation, in which time we're going to be renaming the Mill Creek Playground, I believe it is, into the Tiffany Fletcher Playground, which was done by Councilwoman Gauthier. That's bill number 220907. We'll be hearing that today. And so we ask folks to be on at 1:30 for the mic check for a 2 o'clock start for that hearing. Thank you. And also on rebuild. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Kathy Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Council President. I, too, just wanted to welcome our new colleagues to Philadelphia City Council on the occasion of your very first council session. Offer my condolences to the families of T. Milton Street and Miss Marion Johnson, who taught us all so much here in the halls of City Hall, and remind our colleagues to please come by and say hello to the girls from Girls High who will be in the caucus room learning more about how our government functions. So please come by and say hello to the girls. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. I do want to also welcome my new colleagues to your first day of council. I look forward to continuously moving the city of Philadelphia forward with all of you. And want to take a moment also to acknowledge the family of Mr. Milton T. Street. As a young man growing up in South Philadelphia, my immediate family wasn't actively involved in politics, but I had an aunt who was very, very Afrocentric. And so I remember talking to her about wanting to get involved in politics, and at the time, I thought John Street was like the man, right? And my aunt was like, well, let me give you the history, right? And she talked about Milton Street, and she talked about how when you see homelessness in the streets of Philadelphia, they were taking the boards off of these homes in the city and placing the homeless people inside these homes, right, to make sure that they had a safe place to stay, as well as providing them food to take care of themselves. I remember as I got older and got involved in politics, I always watched how he always challenged the status quo and pushed the envelope for elected officials to do things differently. I remember he had a bill, a casino gaming bill concept, right, where the proceeds from that bill in the Senate will go toward job training and development, helping our young people, right? And a lot of folks probably didn't take the concept seriously, but I paid attention to the policy aspect of it, because the reality is, if we passing big bills for big business, why aren't we taking the same approach to take care of those who are the least of us and making sure we're carving out and supporting those who need to be supported? And so to the family of Mr. Milton Street and to the Street family, I just want to personally send my condolences, because at the end of the day, he did a lot of good work here in the city of Philadelphia advocating. When you advocate for those who are most in need, that's not the sexy issue. A lot of times, people like to shine light on the things that don't take a lot of fight and advocacy around, but not really look at when you're really rolling up your sleeves and speaking truth to power. And that comes with a price when you're fighting a good fight. And so we thank the Street family, but particularly the life and legacy of Mr. Milton Street. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Lozado.
Thank you, Council President. First, I'd like to say thank you to all of my colleagues for all of the support and offering their support and direction as I learn to navigate in this capacity. I'm grateful for that. But I'd also like to say that I am happy to hear all of the concerns expressed here around including young people in different conversations. I come from Esperanza, where I had the privilege of working with young people, and oftentimes they always felt excluded from conversations. We held a series called Power Talks on a monthly basis, where we brought community leaders and put them in what we call the hot seat to talk to them about what their profession was and how young people could make their jobs better. Young folks don't get that opportunity often. And so I encourage all of you to have a power talk or have some type of youth talk in your communities. And as we think about strategies, as we think about how to change gun violence, as we think about how to make quality of life in different neighborhoods better, let's think about making sure that young people's voices are at the table and that they are the priority because they are tomorrow's leaders. So again, thank you so much for all of the well wishes and all of the support and understanding how important of a role young people play in our city.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Harity.
Yes, I'd like to also thank my colleagues for welcoming me here to the chamber. And I'd also like to rise to recognize T. Milton Street. It's no secret that me and Senator Street have been friends for a mighty long time, going back to high school track days. And, you know, we're very upset that Milton has passed, but I wanted to just share a little thing that Milton told to me and Street. He said, you know, when I die, people are going to say that cancer got me. But I want you to know that 5 years ago, they gave him 5 months to live. And he lasted 5 years. The other day, they gave him 5 hours to live. And he lasted 5 days. T. Milton Street was a tough man. And what he told us is that he wanted people to know that T. Milton Street kicked cancer's butt for 5 years. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Councilman. He was a guy. Real quick, just as I'm listening to this, I just remember briefly, I had a little kind of relationship with the Street family. T. Milton Street was like a person that was like kind of before his time. You know, you think about, I heard you reference Councilman Johnson about the abandoned buildings. And people said, what is he doing? And it morphed into the gift property program. So the government stole what he was doing and formalized it and took credit for it. You know what I'm talking about? He talked about how, you know, we got to come up with this bipartisanship, you know, to get things done, you know, getting Councilman O and Councilman O'Neill. We do that all the time here. But back when Milton Street did it to get stuff for his district up in the Capitol, they raked him over the coals because he said, well, look, the Republicans were in charge. I had a needy district. Guess what? I got to go over there and get money for my district. And he pulled that off, right? And they were like lambasting him. He talked about legalizing weed, and at that time it was called marijuana, right? You know, and that's actually what got him kicked out of office. You know, they went out and got Roxanne Jones and people, oh my God, legalizing marijuana, right? You know, and now what is it, like 30, 40 states, right? They have like legalized marijuana, right? What they called it at the time. So he was clearly a person that was way before his time, and he set the template, as I said earlier, not only for activism, but he set the template for policy. And he will be missed, but, you know, there are so many of us, particularly his family members, again, I had a little relationship with them guys, you know. They will continue their work, and it's our responsibility to continue that level of activism and that level of work to speak for those people that don't have the voice and the platform to speak for themselves. So, guys, with that, thank you. He will be missed. And I would like to recognize Councilman Squilla for a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the council stand adjourned until Thursday, December 8th, 2022 at 10 a.m.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded. The council stand adjourned until Thursday, December 8th, 2022, 10 a.m. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. Thank you all very much.